Story continued from Thaddeus and Tarquinus playlist. Escalation. Three faces fade from my mind. Echoes of echoes. Our only secure way of corresponding, conversing. The only one we know to be safe. Three faces, where once there were four. Two of them are my counterparts, leaders of their own prongs. The other face, our permanent watchdog on the conclave, Scardia. It was our monthly catch-up. At long last, we all have something worthy of reporting. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen. But it made a change. All of us having something to chew on. I reported Tamerlane's capture, the Hydra amongst us, the risk of more. The contact we'd made with Xenos races, with a common cause to our own. I'll get to that in a sec. The Gene Warriors, armor, ships. The pocket empire we now face. The enemy has grown potent in manpower and munitions out here in the dark. The others, they tell me all they've discerned. Planets devoid of life, artifacts unearthed and stolen, ancient battlefields are more derelict graveyards amongst the stars. And more dead Xenos ships of equal antiquity out here. Those metal skeletons the Farseer called Ogier, or was it Ingir? What the Imperium knows as the Necrons. I don't pretend to have an in-depth knowledge of Eldar history. I am not Ordo Xenos. But we are so very far from the Eye of Terror, the old heartlands of the Eldar. Why was the sector on the fringes of the galaxy so damn important, so hard fought over? Shukala et al. Has skirted wide. It's not as bad as it could be. Thankfully, this pocket-human empire does not stretch to the very borders of the Imperium. But it's larger than we'd wanted to believe. We need more details. The other prongs have dodged far fewer massing fleets in their regions, so the activity is definitely in my vicinity. Hence, Shukala is bringing his prong south to meet us, if he can get near us at all. Bromir the bear. He has claws all right. He purged his way across, yet moved quickly. Picked his battles, but bloodied anything that's come near him. Deep sigh. That may not garner us any popularity out here, but Bromir was always incorrigible. Nobody could change him if they tried. He's already hit 2 outposts of this Omega Empire. What he found was disturbing. Altars aplenty, but not just to Madrort alone. The 4 are seen everywhere. Their taint runs deep. They are blatant. I've literally walked my charges into hell. But Scardia. The Ordos are torn, all of them. Hereticus, Malleus, and Xenos. Gilliman, the Primarch reborn. He isn't causing ripples. He creates tsunamis. Yet, there are movements in the highest convocation. They are gaining position reports, and all of us in the traditions, who have our 100th successor. Slowly they track us. The time of testing will begin. Thus, we do not have forever out here. The wheels of the bureaucracy turn slowly, is what many believe. But I have witnessed them grind down all. The Grey are involved, or so Scardia reports. We traditions will comply, or... We have months, a year or two perhaps, but not decades. We remaining prongs must decide the matter. It's time I commit. I despise burning any resources I have hoarded from my successor. Yet it was Barbon who scolded me, motivated me, advised me as he always does. While he lay in that apothecary bed, we discussed my little affliction. He read me the Riot Act. Thinking my justified kicking about the drinking was over, I was leaving when he stopped me, said his piece, and it hit like a cyclonic torpedo. Thaddeus, my oath-keeper, my friend, the time has come. Your life, it is worth living. You are not merely a conduit, a stepping stone. You've hoarded all your life to pass it on to the 100th. But if there is no one to pass it on to, no order, no Imperium, only chaos, you will have failed worse than if you'd not scrawled one name in the book. You said you had opened your trove. You lied. You've divvied out weapons, talismans, and trinkets, but not done what is required. It is time. You've let events take control. We must be the hunter. Hope. You said we would bring it wherever we went. You promised me. You are not just a Thaddeus. You are the Thaddeus. This is the time. This is the foe. And that was it. Barbon is always right. Well, apart from the vanishingly few exceptions that only go to prove the rule. I march to my quarters with purpose. All of this, is beyond life and death, beyond traditions and lines ending. Truly, this is the war the traditions were formed to fight. I honestly believe that now. As Tan Irenaid, the Heart of Fire, stated, this may well be an early battle of the Rana Dandra, one we must win, for the Imperium, for the galaxy entire. I stood before my fire and carefully tore pages from my book, launching them into the conflagration. Names, faces, memories, all invoked with the incantation our line has known for nearly 9 millennia. I speak the words. I hold the images in my mind. I throw pages into the fire. The last is possibly the most important. Perseus. Then, my mind changes. My hand moves on its own accord. My lips move. One more. Though he could resist it, even ignore it. But perhaps, just perhaps, he will come. A hope beyond hope. But I have to try. Now, I did mention our contact with a potential ally. Or allies. Xenos, though, not ideal, I can assure you. But one works with what one has at hand, and, callous as it may sound, I am an Inquisitor of the Imperium. And by that rote, it is far better to throw non-humans at this situation. Yet I must admit, I do genuinely enjoy the company of a few of them. Well, from the interactions we've had. Like Anrad and the Heart of Fire, or Louis, the stance is all. Some species wear many faces, as do we humans, but many of these beings are mono-interactive, unguarded, direct. One tone almost. But if you are watching carefully, there are nuances there. It's like a minefield, for all peoples have different taboos. So, I usually send in Anhrad first. Negotiate trade, and everything grows from there. An honourable pact concluded to mutual benefit works wonders when enacted swiftly and cleanly. Trust builds in steps. We do what we say we'll do. The main Xenos. They appeared like huge dark Jucero, surly looking, like Barbon when he's restraining himself from killing someone. But, like Barbon, they can be regal and gentle when trust is built. Speaking of Barbon, he's taken to hanging out with Devrin again, him and Bartholomew. Well, when he isn't training Santana. And of course, we're back to nope. Not touching that with a battle barge. And he's even put Pius back through his paces. I watched that particular training session to better acquaint myself with who he is, not who I remember him to be. He has grown, matured. He is deadly and efficient. I should not be surprised. He is nearing 2 centuries old himself. It's the rejuve. It made him look young again. So much like he was when we were together. Was this on purpose, or simply out of requirement? I may never know. Pius is a born manipulator. It is one of his greatest tools. But the sparring is excellent. Pius is also a powerful warrior, a tempered bladesman. He has a marine of his own, an Ironheart. I do not know of that chapter, but like so many these days, the marine is primaris. Yet Barbon is a fighter of unique skill. Hence, Pius tests himself against the blade of the Black Templars. Or is this for my benefit? In any case, the sparring is at a pace and capability I can barely perceive. Pius is special, gifted. His warp ability makes him difficult to stand against. Oh, Barbon beats him time and again, beats him like a rug. But anyone else, perhaps even a different Astartes, this Ironheart? Pius is faster and stronger than even they. Pius enhances his body, or those of others. Bio-thingy. Yes, I'm being petulant. Of course, I know every last technical categorization, tidbit or report about his particular strain of psychic talent. But bio-thingy always just summed it up for me. Plus the obligatory ability to receive from and speak to another telepath. But, like Saulet, it's not his forte. They can barely speak to each other that way, or so they profess. But they can. Familiar too. Ugh. I can see why I was such a hard sell, and a bit of a liability to the line. But I have a more rarefied talent still. Just the one. Every last human soul is important, but perhaps not the body that houses it. I can see the greatness in others. More to put it, I can see those who could be great if nurtured, if kept alive. Pius has it. So much more so. I thought he was going to be the one, the 100th. But then there was one who burned even brighter. Thrown into my path by Providence alone, by the Emperor. Better not go there. Hope, Barbon said. I still had it. Even now, many weeks after the event. Yet Vermilia is right. pious will have to do. We both stand in the sea of souls. Lights and feelings, senses reflected, minds unshackled from the limitations of time and place, laws and space. Tan Irenaid, the Farseer, here's my admittance in full. The further conflict with Madrort, his bid to turn me, my rebuttal, how he tried to drag me down, to end me, how I used his name to shock him for those fleeting seconds required to escape. The Heart of Fire said not one word throughout my entire narration. When I ended, he simply muttered to himself. The strands converge. The enemy is named. He looked across the sea of souls, quiet, silent, then rounded on me and began. Coolly, calmly, dripped horror, enlightenment, secrets and truth onto me, into me. The Gyrinx at my feet was exhausted by his litany of education. It seemed never-ending. Wisdoms of ancient times, imparted by tale, myth, analogy and clarifying interpretation. Glyphs and wards drawn, and the ways to sunder, plunder or play with them. Perspectives that changed my reality, my mind, my very sight. The way to break and bruise and burn, like a marriage experienced in a minute. Time had no meaning. My mind was near shattered. If not for the cat, I would have been driven mad. But then, without the cat, I would not have understood half of his briefing. I dropped to my knees and gasped at him, but still, he towered over me, unrelenting, inscribing his lessons on my very soul. And it came to the point where I could take no more, and he guided us back to our bodies. I instantly passed out. I woke 2 days later, but on the third day, he took me again. This time, I was gone for 10 full hours. In the other realm, it felt like months. He blasted me again with the keys to the universe. He did not say why. I did not ask. I endured this 3 more times while in transit. The last time was the worst. When it concluded, I was out for the count for 3 days. Tan Irenaid had passed to me all I needed to know. I was changed. Oh, my face was the same, even my hair and clothes, walk and gesture, all the same. But inside, within, I was as different to my old self as I ever was before the replacement of my eye and half my skull after the beating I took from the Chaos Space Marines. It might take me a lifetime to unpack and practice what I had been taught, but it was there. Every detail at my mental fingertips, should I but reach out and grasp it. My mind had been rewritten. I no longer needed the mental framework laid out by Thaddeus. I had no rooms and lockboxes in my mind anymore. I had a garden of infinite beauty, where each smell was a sonnet, and every flower was a secret of eternity. And of course, in the shadows, horror unrelenting. Was I even human anymore? My body was. My soul was certainly not that of an Eldar, but my perception, perspectives, pleasures and pressures were transmogrified. Everything felt different. Will I be so altered that I cannot be amongst my own kind? Will I be so odd, so different, that my own people will always view me askance, treat me like a null, a stranger amongst a crowd? Is this a deviation forced upon me that cannot be undone? Being a telepath, I know that most people do not work on thought. They work on instinct, and animalistic tells and turbulence dictate the relationship and interactions of so many of us. Half-thinking beings who cannot escape from the base reality of our biological urges and preformed evolutionary programming. Will they be able to sniff me out? Will they be able to sniff out my mental mutation? Ah, revile the mutant is the litany. But that is only a form, not soul. How much more detested will I be if anyone catches on? Or am I pretentiously bewailing a piffling addition of knowledge to a voracious mind? Does knowledge burn and change the soul? Thaddeus, my first master of the mind, the very blood of he who sits on the throne. They thought and taught as much. I will need to work out who I am again and again over the coming years, the exploration of a lifetime, to truly know oneself. The battles that come crashing towards us all will tell if this was necessary. Only time will tell if this is a boon or a curse. Dare I even tell Ursula? Will she turn from me as some form of crossbreed monstrosity? I cannot face that yet. Because we were there. But where is more the point? Before the tuition, I had that conversation. And I do mean that conversation. With the Ealdorman and the Strike Commander. And from it, we set off in search of allies. Although that in itself had its own complications. I had a discourse with the captain of the Huntsmen of the Soul, who laid things out quite simply when I asked if we could take over the function of these prison haulers. We're stretched as it is, Inquisitor. Remember that the original inhabitants of this ship were slain. We're the skeleton crew taken from Vermilia, Sowlet's and Thaddeus' ships. Officers are rarer than you think, Inquisitor. The bridge crews are the elite, many from the Schola Progenium. The deck crews less so, specialists in one action or simple human labour. They cannot just step up. It's a totally different way of thinking, acting, being. They'd flounder and bring pandemonium. If we don't get help somehow, we'll need to ditch some of the haulers, if not all of them. Simply put, we can't crew them and retain a combat capability. Yet, our catch provided the resources we needed. We had taken haulers packed with traitors to the enemy's regime. Thankfully, many were loyal to this Strike Commander and had the required skills and experience to pilot the haulers. Each bridge had a few officers from the Huntsmen of the Soul to overwatch their activities, but the language barrier came into play quite often. Nothing worth doing is easy, it seemed. But we got there. We limped to the site, the realization of the hope that had been promised in the scrying session performed before we set out. Of course, Tan, Irenaid, I and Ursula had thoroughly checked this new location before ever we set out there. The results were unabashedly stellar. Little risk, colossal reward. We went on our way with confidence. Strike Commander Laurent had been pivotal in it all. He was a fine man. In the Imperium, he would be an admiral too, I have no doubt of this. But I jump ahead. We come back to the meeting. The history of tyranny. How the enemy had taken, then transformed this society. Now the Xenos. How we met, I can tell you. That was fraught. We arrived in the system noted by the Corps as a main potential ally. These were the backbone of the previous alliance formed to defend Corps from the Omega Empire. That alliance, lamentably, fell to pieces pretty swiftly when our fellow humans had left and shown no evidence of an intent to return. Yet these beings had experience with the human empire out here, as we were to hear, and we managed to wander directly into a fleet action. At the provided coordinates, we crashed out of the warp. We saw it all as soon as our Auspex was back online. 3 distinct forces, 2 allied, 1 in the middle. The ships we did not recognize were large, broad, but slow. They reminded me of groks, plodding and ponderous, but powerful on the charge. And they were being stung by flies, it seemed. When the Xenos turned to face one human force, they would back off and lead them on, permitting the second flotilla to edge in and shoot the Xenos in the weaker rear armor. When the Xenos turned around again, the same dance began anew. The Omegan flotillas were loading the larger bulk ships. If nothing happened soon, nothing broke this chain, then the Xenos would inevitably be stung too often, and their ships slowly rent asunder. The Omegan fleet sent challenges and warnings for us to stay away. The Xenos did not challenge us immediately. They may have assumed we were more human ships come to join the dissection. So, we contacted the Xenos, sent over the introductory message from our allies, the Corps, but we did not state or show we were human. Not yet. We did not know if they had accepted our word then, so we had a quick conflab, Antrad, Sowlet, Pius and I. And then, in we went, wheeling around and heading towards the fray. We edged in closer behind an Omegan flotilla. We gambled, of course. Any fleet action, any combat, has its risks. But what choice did we have? Leave a man to die, and you get righteous ire forever. Aid a sentient being when in need. Odds are that they will reciprocate. Not always true, I'll grant you, but the chances are high. So we powered in behind these enemies, who are now trapped between us and the Xenos brute ships, and we made clear our intent with Vermilia's first volley. Not used to our form of weaponry, it seems, the shots broke down their defences and slew a ship outright. As we charged in, the Omegan flotilla attempted to break up and make a run for it. Antrad's Bastion ship and my own added enough firepower to make them veer off in a hurry. But, as they turned from us, the Xenos fleet ploughed into them. And what a sight that was. Short-range, slow ships, probably built from a mindset of defense, not domination. But when in their element, at their chosen range, they let out a deluge of firepower that was damned effective. They annihilated the first flotilla. The moment of truth came for us as we hove into their arcs of potential fire. But they did not. Well, fire, that is. Seeing themselves outnumbered and clearly outgunned, the remaining Omegans ripped a tear into the warp and scarpered. Pretty slick, actually. We opened up comms, and the Xenos directed us to a planet at the fringes of the system, one with exceptional gravity. We were escorted to its orbit by their fleet. If we went in there, into this gravity well, it would be bloody obvious and excruciatingly slow if we attempted ambush or even escape. The Xenos ships were accustomed to these pressures, it seems, so this region would be an equalizer in case of treachery from us. Unsurprisingly, the captains were very reticent to go into this orbit, but I overruled them. We had helped save the Xenos. Why would we break faith with them now? Compliance was a swift second affirmation of our positive intentions, and this paid off in spades. The initial contact was performed by Antrad, as stated. He requested some of the most simple of supplies that anyone and everyone would have. Paid well over the odds for them, or so he told me. but this did indeed smooth things. He was human-ish, so their first impressions were not great, but they did not fire on us, even when I was then included in the discussions and attempted my first sally at true accord. Over the next few days, Vox discussions became face-to-face, then, finally, we went aboard their vessel. Barbon was livid when I refused his escort yet again, but, again, an oversized genetically enhanced warrior might look a bit too much like the butchers employed by the Omega Empire. Again, I was surrounded by kin of the Leagues of Votan, which, I have to admit, I do take some tiny enjoyment in. With Barbon about, I rarely get to feel tall. Amongst this lot, I felt like a giant. Finally knowing how Barbon must marvel at us all. Diddy people wandering about his shins all the time. I can now see why he laughs at any baseline human when they attempt to be aggressive, all the while craning their necks to glare up at him. Though I am not quite in the same situation, it is true. These tiny terrors, the kin, are lethal when angered. I wouldn't last long against this lot if they turned on me. Something, of course, that Barbon takes great relish in reminding me. Berenger this, little Squits that. But he is wrong. Berenger 5 was as out of character for them as it was for us. Ah, my knight, the best man I have ever known. But he is also the most stubborn, unrelenting, and unforgiving. He holds to standards of conduct and self-control that leave no place for pity, remorse, or fear. Unsurprising from a son of Sigismund, I guess. Anywho, meet and greet we did. The Xenos called themselves the Kinnybrak, a last holdout from a once galaxy-spanning empire. All they wanted was to be left alone, it seems. Theirs was an outpost region that separated from the main empire of their kind many millennia ago. Something about not wanting to merge with others, not out of disdain or hatred, but simply because in this area they did not need to and were ultra-conservative. Go-it-alone kind of guys, it seems. And they had thrived since, had wars with neighbours, but held their own, and prospered, but not been particularly bothered about expansion. All had seemed well, until the rise of the Omega Empire. Fortuitously, the Corivore had vouched for us, and even more so, that this was where the Kinnybrak were to meet delegates from 4 other races. Alas, as time went by, only 3 others arrived, and not in the kind of numbers the Kinnybrak had hoped. We did not have direct contact with the new arrivals, as the Kinnybrak informed us that they were less reasonable and far more scarred by a deep-rooted hatred of humans of any kind. To be honest, I could not blame them. We kept everything audio only while they reported to the Kinnybrak. The last delegation, the Xenoxin, did not arrive, as they were no more. The Omegans had assaulted their system, then launched a weapon at their homeworld that obliterated it. We of the Imperium knew what it was immediately. Exterminators. So, the bastard has brought with him weapons of forbidden providence, restricted use, and he shows absolutely no restraint. This perfectly explains the fear we cause. If he has been ordering exterminators of Xenos worlds, why would they not hate him and all of his kind? Moving on. Well, the Kinnybrak turned out to be one of the largest powers out here, with over a score of worlds, but most a single system or even single world species. This is not the first time they have witnessed genocide, the obliteration of an entire people. And I had to fight my feelings on this. One side of my heart told me that it was good and righteous to remove these beings from the universe. All said and done, I am a son of Ultramar, But when confronted by the sentience and, well, common decency, similarity to us in these beings, did they not feel pain, fear, hunger as we did? But more, what of joy, love, laughter? Were we so different after all? Did we really have to expunge them all to remain safe? Our own history in the galactic heartlands state an emphatic yes. Yet, I saw nothing from these people that led me to believe that they were an ongoing threat to us. Perhaps in the future. Governments and cultures change, so maybe one day they might be a threat. But their reaction to the wholesale slaughter of others made it hard to believe somehow. Nor were they lying, as none of the other Xenos knew we were human, so they had absolutely no reason to dissemble or put on a pantomime. The Kinnybrak privately confirmed that they would inform their allies of our origins and species, but only when we had shed blood together, just as we had done in saving them from the Omegan attack. The Kinnybrak would reveal this detail when the others had seen our metal. Seen our cause was the same. A tenuous thing at best. It had taken many days of haggling, diplomacy, and heated debate, but it was finally formed, hanging by a thread, likely to implode at any given moment. But for the time being at least, we had the beginnings of an alliance. Well, the Kinnybrak did at least. Alas, it was not long before we were given that chance to prove ourselves. Before I had that conversation, I walked the pens, visiting them for the first time since we had captured the barges. Ursula had been attempting to look after the psychers as best she could prior to this, but I needed to see them for myself. We'd taken down all the fences, brought in bedrolls, better lighting, food, access to limited washrooms, etc. We are humanizing them again slowly, carefully, because the first thing we had to do was to unchain, ungag, and unblindfold them. Sensory deprivation is spiritually and mentally crippling. They are all wounded deep. We are as gentle as time and resources permit. I walk amongst them, bringing calm and stability. We speak, and I learn, and they are heard. It helps. They are of varying strengths, but few, despite the psychic awakening, are truly mighty. Do I judge them too harshly? No. I, as always, am a realist. Few could ever be of more use than their risk denotes. They are undefended minds, unguarded hearts. I know I will have to give some the Emperor's peace, for they are a liability. But they are humans, so I do my best by them. At present they recover, and Ursula has taken the most talented and instructed them on the very basics of self-defense. The closing of the mind, the shutting of the sense, protection from the whispering voices from the warp. These will disseminate the teachings and training as swiftly as they can. Some will take to it more easily than others. They come from all across this system, some in families, some alone, herded into these ships alongside the self-proclaimed traitors to the Omega Empire, the adherents and former crew of the strike commander, Justin Laurent. All were headed toward the capital. But why? For the rebel soldiery, I can guess, but for the psychers, this does not sit well. It does not bode well. I can think of a few uses of psychers, but a cold shadow crosses my heart when I think of what Madrot would do to them, with them. I feel a deep sadness for them. Without soul forging, the protection of the Emperor, or the training of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, they will be outcasts and dangers to all around, and they know it. None are my equal in power nor will, for I was trained by a farseer, a sensei prior, and even before that, I had the orderly and disciplined mind of an Inquisitor in training. One wonders how they have survived up to this point without the protection of the Imperium. A puzzle indeed. But they are not me. I bid Ursula a fond farewell as I leave to meet our new allies. I meditate for an hour before the rendezvous. This will be testing. I must be careful with my every mental muscle. I cannot make the same mistakes I made when I interrogated the survivors of my own world. He is the last of his kind. I cannot blow this by scrambling his brain, nor that of the commander, of course. Yet the training from the farseer, the assistance of Rebute, the control and purpose I have learned in my time in the deep Umbra, the confrontation with the enemy, they have honed me. I can do this. I prepare the mindscape before they arrive. The strike commander leads the crippled old man into the room and helps to seat him, acting like a doting son to a failing father. This man of iron shows surprising tenderness for one of his culture. But who am I to state anything, to presume anything? I don't really know anything of his culture. Not yet. I remain seated, relaxed, and softly smile at Justin Laurent. This may be disorienting. I will need your help. The Elderman will need your strength. Are you ready, Justin Laurent? He nods to me solemnly, and he closes his eyes as I do the same. We open them and are transported to the world I have created in my mind's eye. I am not with the two of them, but I can see what they see, hear what they hear. They are inside a small abode I visited on the annual day of celebration that youth were permitted each year, where we were taken from the cities out into the wild, into the outside. It is a small residence made of wood and hay, a simple affair and all the more homely for it. Disarming, one might say, and, of course, they would be correct. Oh, I could have snatched an image or setting from the mind of either the strike commander or the Elderman, but that could have raised their hackles. Nobody likes the idea of their mind or history being perused like an open book. I save them from the confusion by conjuring this image of pastoral bliss. The Elderman is looking around, noticing everything, looking at his hands, touching his own face. His fingers play over his eyelids, feeling the orbs within. Here, it is as if he had never been maimed. He turns to Laurent and beams, opens his mouth and is semi-startled when words come rolling out. "We are not here, are we, Justin?" The officer is stood tall, but his shoulders are not forced back. His arms are at his side, instead of clasped behind said back. He is projecting confidence and calm as best he can. I can feel the discomfort from him, but it evaporates as Elderman Frankius confirms his understanding of matters. "I am not asleep, for this is no nightmare. I have never been here before. So this must be a mind speaker at play, yes?" The strike commander nods gently and smiles back as he states, "This is so, Frankius. A new friend has come to save us. He freed us from captivity and wishes only to speak with you." "Ah, so you are not confident in him, or not confident in your ability to pass on what I have imparted to you?" "A little of both, if I am honest. Do you wish this to end?" The Elderman's eyes sparkle as he snorts, but in mirth, not derision. "I can see again, hear again, speak again. I have hands again." He picks up a small object from one of the side cupboards. He looks at it as he responds again. "I would prefer this continue for as long as possible, my friend. But this is a dream. I will do what is required. I will speak with this new ally of yours, Justin. Do you trust him?" The strike commander attempts to shroud his reaction. but he is too rigid to lie well. I trust him to listen to you. I trust him to hear you. Beyond that, I cannot say. As you taught me, sometimes a savior can be a source of evil." The Elderman cannot take the smile from his face, even after such a doleful warning. "He can hear us right now, can't he?" This Elderman is no fool. "Aye. He can, I would imagine." "Where is he?" says the Elderman. Justin Laurent does not shrug. He merely motions to the door as he says, "I would imagine he is outside, giving us a few moments together to acclimatize to our surroundings." "Ha! How clever," says the Elderman. His smile does not wane, but the eyes take on a knowing look. Aye, I can see and hear all that happens here inside my mind. They are only guests in the landscape of my imagination, after all. I am careful not to connect to them any more than I need to project this halcyon vista. The Elderman momentarily looks mournfully at an empty cup, but heads towards the door. "Well, Justin, let us not keep our host waiting, eh?" The strike commander nods and follows after him through the door. And what a sight they witness. Rolling fields of yellow crops standing waist-high, swaying in a gentle breeze. A warming sun shines down, not a cloud in the skies. Birds fly overhead, softly soaring on the summer zephyrs. Elderman Frankius breathes deep, takes it all in, is mesmerized by all around him, until he finally spots me, some 50 yards away. I stand beside a wooden table and 3 benches. On the table are meats and fruits on platters overflowing, goblets with fine drinks within. For this event, I mimic the taste and texture of that fine wine the Eldar gave me once, the day the measuring began. My testing. It is the best taste I have ever encountered. This poor soul deserves nothing less, after what they have done to him. I stand, waving welcomingly. I place myself distant so they can get used to my image as they approach. I am dressed in the clothes I would wear off duty inside my own quarters. Simple garb, from a simpler time. No icons of power, no armor or weapons. As they approach, the Elderman wanders more than walks, the strike commander striding, but doing so slowly so as not to outpace the old man. Even now, in this dream, he is still protective. I take one step to meet them and bow, a smile plastered across my face, but not one ear to ear, of course. "Elderman Frankius, Justin Laurent, I am honored for you to join me." The Elderman steps forward, and we shake hands. "I presume this is a memory of your home world." "It is beautiful here." Before I can stop myself, a single word tumbles out of my mouth. "Was." The Elderman and Strike Commander look at me strangely, as if noting the bitterness in my voice. A sadness crosses the Elderman's face as he nods to me gently, reassuringly. The Strike Commander covers his emotions, and I watch his blank face. Well, at least I have shown I am human, and that I have suffered loss as well. I clarify. It was destroyed by the forces allied with your monarch. None survived but me and one other. It is why I swore never to rest until the enemy had been destroyed. The Elderman squeezes my hand. I did not notice that we still clasped. The Strike Commander appears to understand me slightly more. His guard drops just that little bit. He knows my quest. At least, he thinks he does. I step back, releasing the clasp of the Elderman, and sweep my hand across the table, and they see the feast prepared there. I think we are all aware that none of this is real, but I, for one, would like to taste again if someone had removed my tongue. The Elderman smiles up at me knowingly and sits down, instantly reaching for a leg of meat. His teeth sink into it, and he closes his eyes, leaning back as he chews with relish. Laurent sits, but does not eat, does not drink. A disciplined man with no interest in food for anything but sustenance, it seems. So much like Barbon and other warriors I have met. Not all, of course. Devlin and the Catachans adore to consume. Scoff down plates and plates of the stuff, but then they have a need. Protein is what they state. Yet that does not explain their adherence to preparing it so well, if given the time. I will never forget Ursula commanding them when preparing that last feast before our quest. I smile at the memory. The Elderman moves from one nibble to the next, then finally takes a sip of the drink. His eyes widen as he gulps at me. "What, young man, is this?" "Ah, how rude of me. I am Tarquinus, and that is a rare vintage of wine from a friend. I've only tasted it once, and the approximation I make is not even close to the real thing. But it is the best I could do." "Well, that was a friend indeed, to provide such a beverage." He glugs down the entire contents of the glass, then reaches for more food. Laurent is being patient, arms crossed, but not out of defensiveness. His shoulders support quite a weight in those powerful arms. He was not just a leader. He was a man capable of great feats of strength from his musculature. I nibble and pick to mirror the Elderman, but finally he stops and puts his hands over his stomach, indicating with a belch and grin that he may finally have stopped. I have missed the simple rare pleasures of existence. To hear, to see, to taste. For this, I am grateful to you, Tarquinus." I do not correct him. "Now, if Justin has no concerns, it is time to do the thing I love most of all. To talk. But one question first, young man." I smile and invite the query with my open hand gesture. His face is calm, but his stare is implacable. "The monarch is a man who came from the stars, a being who can mind speak also, a snake who offered assistance and fine wine when we needed it most. Why should I trust that you are not pulling exactly the same trick as he has for millennia?" My eyebrows raise and I whistle while leaning back. "You do not mess around." I respect that. The monarch fled from the worlds nearer the center of the galaxy, where we have our Imperium. He was and is an enemy of our leader, the Emperor of mankind. He is of a similar form, if not stature in power, for our Lord is also immortal and the most potent mind speaker ever born. He is our God. Yet, he is a benevolent being, a god of mercy that protects us from the evils in the galaxy. The Elderman's eyes thin. "The monarch would describe himself in terms almost identical." That he would. For he mimics the god emperor of mankind, but he is a twisted lesser reflection. That is why he hides from our Lord, out here at the very edges of the galaxy. It is why I have come, to end his evil. The strike commander interjects. "Many have tried to do this. Many. All have failed. And I know exactly why. For the monarch is in fact practically invulnerable to age, illness, and death. Yet, even among his kind, the immortal, there are ways to kill them. Few, but they exist. And we have some." The Elderman raises an eyebrow. I must continue, it seems. "I belong to an order of men called the Ordo Malleus. We are tasked to hunt down the Neverborn, the demons who are in the service to the dark gods of chaos, and of course, all who serve them. Your monarch is one such traitor. He serves the evil that corrupts and destroys all goodness and decency. I will not pretend I come from a land of milk and honey, for this is simply not so. The Imperium is beset on all sides by evil. Alien races who want nothing but the extermination of all life, beings that consume everything in their path and move on to worlds without count. And of course, the evil ones who serve the powers of chaos. Ours is an Imperium of pain and suffering, where all perpetually strive to survive. Yet, in so doing, by existing, we hope to bring about a better day, a better world. It is why I am here. We have tracked him, your monarch, out here to defeat him. For he seems to have great sway over your people, and I fear he will use you to do something that will endanger all of our people. And in that, I also include my own, for I refer to all of humanity. Thus we have come to destroy him, finally and totally. We have the weapons that can do this. All we need to know is where he is and how we can get to him. But of course, the more I know, the more effective I can be in this hunt. Will you help me? Will you tell me of this dark king who enslaves your people? The Elderman looks to Justin, who simply nods and states, Frankius, I do not have the wit nor memory to relate this well. Open his eyes, as you did mine. The Elderman looks down with his eyes closed, measuring, thinking. His head shoots up and his eyes are wide as he intones. I will not take up your time with details, dates, names, and numbers, for the tale of our people is long and the crimes of the monarch without count. I, as a last memory keeper, will tell you only what you need to know. To do otherwise would take decades, even in mind speak. So, let me tell you of the horror that is the monarch. And he did. The centuries of encroachment slowly building reputation, making himself a fixed position in the history and even the very culture of these people. I heard of horror and degradation most foul, of the slow toppling of an enlightened and open people. How he left and returned again, time and time again, the periods of his travels becoming shorter and shorter, until finally he was amongst these people most of the time. He told me of their struggles against the Xenos races in this region, of their long enslavement under the Eldar who could only hail from Cormorra, the dark copies of the Eldar I know. How Madrort saved them and constantly refused the accolades offered. How he dragged them back from the Stone Age into a high-tech civilization, able to travel the stars again. Oh, he did it so slowly, so precisely, so carefully, taking hundreds of years to claim each new station, ever-widening power over these poor people. Trained these souls to think of him not only as a savior, but as their own equivalent of a god emperor. The swine befouls all he touches. He claims to stand against the god emperor to be his opposite. In this, he speaks true. He is a broken mirror image of our Lord. He watched what the emperor did out of kindness and strength, what was required to keep humanity alive. Then he performed the same pantomime out of spite, to gain unquestionable control over all, not just their resources and population, but their very hearts. Elderman Frankius speedruns a timeline from the very fall of humanity and Old Night, all the way through until today. He is an eloquent speaker, and I know he leaves endless nuances unstated, but the truth is plain. The monarch is the head of the state, belief and culture. He is everything to these people, and he has made their homes and hearts into things most vile. With Thaddeus, I have witnessed, rooted out and exterminated cults. What he describes to me is an entire culture based on the corrupted beliefs of the gods of chaos. But when they told me of the seasons, I was repulsed. For each cycle is broken into 4 phases they call seasons, and it is clear to any with the knowledge that they are dedicated to the 4 gods. The season of fear, the season of pain, the season of strife, and that of love. A wheel of detestation that consumes their population, then raises it again through rampant fornication. Spiteful, callous, and corrupt. Only those with the darkest souls and urges can rise to the top. Which does make me wonder about the man sat before me, this strike commander. The Elderman concludes his history with recent events. The birth of the blood of hate. The warriors always at the vanguard of their wars. They are clearly gene-enhanced monstrosities, something akin to the Astartes. Then, the call to prepare for Exodus. A term I understand, but not in this setting. The Elderman then brings it back to the personal. I am the last of my kind, but not the last of good heart. Over many centuries we have been building a resistance to the monarch. Many times have we made attempts on his life. All have failed. So, for 300 years we have hidden further, bided our time, watched for souls similar to our own, the rare few who are not monsters. I know that our people are inherently good, that the monarch affects everything and everyone. If we could be rid of him, it would take time. It would take bloodshed and horror. But eventually, we could sweep his effect from our nation. We can return to what we always should have been, intrepid explorers and lovers of knowledge. It is why we, of all humans, were out here, so far from the central worlds, the cradle of humanity. Our forebears were men of wisdom, seekers of knowledge, intrepid souls. We can be again, if we can see a way out from the trap he has thrown over our people. In all this time, we have grown our numbers, watching recruits in the military, for that is the key to all of this. The Navy. The blood of hate are beyond salvation, as are so many of the soldiery, trained in so brutal an environment that massacre and slaughter are all they desire. But we did find others of like mind, amongst the officers, those of high intellect who could feel that something was wrong, that we should not be this way. We spread amongst the fleets, the facilities, slowly building. All we truly needed was leadership. It is so rare for a man of worth to rise amongst the ranks of the monarch's navy, assassination and brutality being the fastest route to promotion. The likelihood of a decent man ever rising to prominence was calculated to be 0. Then I heard of Justin. He looks to the strike commander, who nearly blushes. Justin rose to lead an entire fleet, the 7th, yet there were whispers. His punishments were harsh, but fair. His restraint was always explicable, an expedient he would state, but evident. Where entire colonies could be annihilated for any sign of resistance, Justin struck the heads from the ringleaders alone. Where our fleets fought to the end, always did, and men or ships were mere numbers to be expended for advantage, Justin preserved all he could. Never wasteful, never a butcher. We watched him for years. Finally, one of us took the leap and approached. When he was suitably drunk, our man tested him, talked to him, revealed a fraction of our organization to him. Thinking it a trick from an underling attempting to gain his position, it was hard to make him believe. Thus, when Justin came to my world, I did what had to be done. I met with him and told him the truth, far more than I have to you. I told him all of it. And I believed him, interjected the strike commander. I had always thought myself a madman, wrong inside, insane, because I saw the world so differently. But finally, I had met people like me, who abhorred what was happening, the callousness, the evil. The Elderman nodded, then continued. And finally, we had a man who others could rally around. Justin Laurent has won so many victories for the monarch and empire that we believe he would never be suspected. Alas, this was not so. I was the one they were watching. I led them to him. I doomed us both." The strike commander places a hand on the Elderman's shoulder and says, "We cannot know that, Frankius. I will not have you punish yourself so. The chances are much greater that it was I who gave off some sort of warning by my actions or the way I reacted to this information. I should have been more careful." "Pish, Justin, pish. Your arrest and removal from the fleet proves to me that the monarch spies knew your crew would remain faithful to thee." "It is in the past, and you have paid the ultimate price, not I." "You are being transported back to the capital to be tried before the monarch. I shudder to think what horror he would inflict on you. My own sacrifice and discomfort would be like a pleasurable repast in comparison." I cough to break up the spiraling pity party. Callous way to put it, perhaps, but I'm actually getting a little tired from the exertion. You see, all the while that the Elderman had been describing their history, unbidden, I had been witnessing his visions, exploring his mind. I'd seen through their eyes what happens on their worlds. I need to think, to compromise what has been shown to me, for it is terrible, and the memory of it will not dim swiftly. I strike up. "So, Justin Laurent, you were arrested?" He nods. "They came in the third shift. The entire crew of that detail had been in on it. They released the blood of hate, who rampaged across the ship until I signaled unconditional surrender, ordered my remaining loyal men to stand down. I knew the blood of hate would not stop immediately, but perhaps some of my people could survive the mutiny. They took me and had an instant replacement ready. The fleet was told I'd gone down to the planet to receive a gift from the monarch, a token of esteem for my actions against the aliens. A rare honor indeed. A lie, of course. I would catch up to my 7th Fleet when they met with the 3rd, under the sword of the monarch, Grand Commander Baltan, the 2nd most powerful officer in all of the Empire. An infestation of aliens was gathering, you see. The prophetic powers of the monarch had foretold this. We were to join with the 3rd, and to hit them as they mustered, to exterminate the alien strength in the one engagement. And, if I am right, this is going to happen very soon, if it has not been done already. I nod repeatedly as I say to them, I thank you both for being so candid. I have learned much. I will reward you with a truth of my own. I am not alone out here in the Omega Empire. There are others of my kind. I will need to report back to them all that I have discovered. Laurent gives me a hard stare. Before you leave to meet these allies, I ask something in return, Tarquinus. If it is within my power, then it shall be done. Take me to my allies. Meaning this 3rd Fleet? No, that would be a death sentence for all of us. The 7th are with the 3rd, which is the most numerous and powerful of all the fleets on operations. Baltan is not merely a Grand Commander, he is the left hand of the monarch. He enjoys this, all of it. Then where? I state. I will give you the coordinates. I ask you to trust me as we have trusted you. Take me to these coordinates, and then we can part ways. I would rather we continue this alliance. I am grateful for being freed, but I have promised no alliance yet. I shoot back. We have the same goals, the same aim. Surely, it would be best if we work together. Perhaps. If you take me to this place, then perhaps we can see if the relationship should continue. I lean back. How do I know you're not leading me into a trap? He leans forward. How do I know you're not working for the monarch? Touché. Well, we'd best be off then. I am roused from my slumber yet again by klaxons and red lighting. Barbon steps into my quarters to hear what transpires. He has taken to standing outside my door, which has absolutely nothing to do with Castro and his ilk whatsoever. When he tires, which is rarely, I might find a shift of Devrin and at least 2 other catachans milling around, often playing dice, which of course I then join in with and annihilate them. Like we've anything to spend our winnings on out here anyways. Concentrate, you old fool. I contact the bridge. Well, what in the blazes is it this time, Captain? He responds. An Omega Empire Armada has arrived, sir. Where? Just behind the 3rd planet. It is heading in our direction. Estimated only 12 hours out. Damn. Order our ships out of the gravity well of this damn planet. Start the breakaway immediately. Patch me through to the others. I start with Anrad. Carl, please inform the Kinnebrak that we are coming out of orbit. We cannot fight while we are in here. The Carl understands and instantly cuts his feed. I exchange opinions with the others. The Xenos are not able or willing to jump out. They will not tell us which or why. I cannot brook the subject. It has been thunderous in its absence as a topic. They know something we do not. Are there more of these enemies in the warp? Do they have Neverborn legions prepared, lurking behind the veil somehow? I'd put nothing past them. Barbon and I sprint to the bridge, and the tactical displays paint a very vivid picture. The Omegan fleet crashes towards us all. In the centre of echelons of escorts and cruisers are some true behemoths. By the throne, they are as large as Imperial battleships. It takes effort to get out of the gravity well of the planet. So, when done, we have only scant hours before they reach long engagement range. The Xenos are in a better position than we are, but slower. Mostly. They send screamer messages to one another. None even countenance an attempt to flee. Badly outnumbered as they are. Even so, the Xenos fleets form up to meet the Omegan Armada. The Kinnebrak ask for our intentions. Anhrad agrees we will take a flank, avoiding the monsters amidst the swarm. The Kinnebrak at the centre of the Xenos fleet will take the brunt of it. It may not last long. The long-range torpedoes, mines and rail weaponry sent at the Omegan fleet is intercepted by point defense weapons or fighters. Absolutely no damage. Professional. They advanced unscathed. Their responding weapons fire comes out and cuts straight through the shields of Xenos. Fireballs replace ships all across the line. The Kinnebrak armor is strong, and they will hurt them in a direct engagement. But what's this? A spatial anomaly explodes before us, lighting the heavens for a mere second. And just as we are bracing for a slaughter, the Omegan fleet cuts holes into the warp and disappears. All of them. Gone. What? Barbon clarifies. They've been called away to more important event. But they had us. A day of battle at most. Likely hours alone, and they could have exterminated the whole lot of us. Barbon responds. Nor would they ignore the damage this will do to their reputation, the fear they've cultivated out here. Whatever is happening, it's big, Thaddeus. By the dread toll of the Bell of Lost Souls, shouldn't we get after them? Barbon always winces at that particular axiom, but not today. Aye, we need to, Thaddeus. Could we follow them? Would we? It was all or nothing. Everyone or no one. We open comms with the other Inquisitors and the Xenos, and the wrangling begins. I look out of this large viewport at the ships flocking outside. I see the designs similar with my own. Well, the Huntsman of the Soul, Ordo Xenos technically. But possession is 9/10 of the law after all. Hence, it is mine. The vista is both heartening and disconcerting. I am no military expert, but I have my insights, ones that were confirmed by the strike commander. Days ago we came out of the warp at the given coordinates, and there we were, 3 haulers and the huntsman in the midst of a shoal of ships, all Omega Empire. I watched Laurent's face as we stood on the bridge. Even he was slightly taken aback by the sheer scale. Our data displays lit up with a tidal wave of target locks. It was akin to being back in Ultramar, but not quite as bad. But oh, so much closer. The strike commander identified himself and gave passwords confirming it. These ships did not take off their locks, but did not fire. Strike Commander Justin Laurent then turned to me with a raised eyebrow and a playful twinkle in his eye. "Now, we were discussing the nature of our relationship." Playing along, I smirk and retort, "But, Strike Commander, surely you cannot be asking for my surrender. We are not engaged in hostilities." For a second I freeze as he stays gaunt, practically glaring. Then his face breaks and he laughs. I join him, of course. "Phew. Indeed, we are not, and I owe you my life. But, far more importantly, the lives of my remaining crew. Do I have your leave to depart, Inquisitor Tarquinus?" "I'll do you one better. If you will have me, I will be your escort to the ship of your choice." He fires back. "Indeed, that would be welcome. But your friend may not come." He indicates the Harlequin. The Farseer is still in his quarters. He has been since our last tuition. I do not know what he does, but I suspect he is preparing for something. Ilhavnarian bows to me and retreats from the bridge or so. He will take no offense from this. He understands. I told the Heart of Fire and he of these humans' history. My Eldar allies are about as proud of the predations of the denizens of the Dark City as we Imperials are of the traitor legions. Though I would later learn that the Dancers take in every sect or breed of Eldari, Ilhavnarian seemed to have no qualms about despising the Drukhari, though. Thus, within hours, Ursula Josephus Elderman Francius and Strike Commander Justin Laurent were shuttled across to the largest ship there, a cruiser, and he explained the ships. Over decades, this fifth column, the cells of rebels, had falsified casualty reports from fleet or raider engagements, sometimes even from full-on assaults, but as inconspicuously as possible. Each ship written off had come here to this place, or others before it, where they had slowly grown. Never engaged the loyalist Omegan fleets, never revealed their existence. Hoarding, massing, waiting. Hence, even he, the strike commander, did not truly know the amount here until the same moment as ourselves. But even I could tell it. There was something missing. Ships too large to go missing. Too many crew to guarantee silence. Too potent and expensive to be written off without full proof of the loss, and the heads that would have rolled from the defeat. This rebel fleet was large, well-equipped and supplied, but it had no true capital control vessels, no flagships. This would place them at a severe tactical disadvantage in any large-scale fleet action. It was also generated from hulls ranging over the last 5 models of upgrades and redesigns, and this was indeed multiple hundreds of years. By the pace of the Imperium, this was nothing. In fact, the older ships would be the most prized. Out here, with things moving forward instead of back, this meant that a good quarter of the rebel fleet was outdated, to say the least. But at least they existed. The strike commander was welcomed like a hero. Officers from across the fleet were present for his arrival. Without further ado, He bustled them into a larger hall with a stage. He bestrode it to applause, and he spoke to them of many things. Of patience, of courage and cunning, under the watchful eye of the hated watchdogs and wardens of the monarch. Laurent orated well. Snappy, tough, everyone present would tell how he thought the strike commander was talking just to him. And he continued. The need had now arisen as never before. The institution of the seasons and talk of Exodus was one step too far. None here could stomach it any longer. They had to strike. If they could create a defeat the monarch could not hide or erase, then millions would come to their side. They all knew that the monarch was not right. None of it was. But all lived in fear. The blood of hate, the soul strong, the demon, the monarch who could not be slain. If they could prick this image, burst this aura of indomitability, then the fires of rebellion would sweep across the entire Omega Empire. And he stated, for every ship they lose, a squadron will join them. For every man or woman slain, 100 would raise from their knees. I heard all of this while looking out of the viewport, back around scanning the minds within that hall. He had them. I could feel their pride and purpose set aflame. They would follow him into the abyss. Then he asked them to do just that. A place that could never be denied, could not be written off. Its loss not ignored by any. There were only 2 facilities in all of the Omega Empire that could create the blood of hate. One was on the capital, and thus absolutely impossible. But the other would be their target. This facility would have a small picket defense fleet, some orbital and surface-to-void weaponry, but it was their most likely target. It would hurt the monarch deeply to lose it, but it was possible to be destroyed. Laurent told them all. They had the means. All it took was the will. Not one captain refused the call, and we will be going with them. Why? Well, that was easy. I got back to the Huntsman of the Soul, and Ursula, I, and Tan Irenaid, the Farseer, performed another scrying. It was a cluttered and confusing reading, but a potent one. Many players would be on the field. More than one of the 8 lieutenants of the enemy would be present. This would be an incredibly hinge moment, the sort that changes the very course of history. We foresaw great loss on both sides, but a high chance of success and, lastly, reunification. The odds were good, and the last bit clinched it for Ursula and the Heart of Fire. I could not disagree this time. We have vital information, have formed alliances. Indeed, it is time. So, off we went. The haulers were left with the rebel reserve and support fleet, which would reposition to another hidden location as we descended upon the Arania system. The days in transit used to rest and recuperate. We are going in hard. Well, the rebels will be. Laurent explained their military doctrines. Why I shouldn't be too concerned about this planetary assault. You see, the planetary defenses of all Omega Empire colonies and facilities are based around destroying local Xenos ships. They are specifically less able against their own navy. A precaution against rebellion, he said, but by the same token, most lesser Omega ships of the line were woefully inept at ground-level bombardment. Only the true flagships contained the weaponry to destroy enemy surfaces, sometimes the planet itself. But still, they were ships of the line. They could pound the ground if need be. Far back from the actual engagement, I, Ursula and the rest all watched on, and it played out as described. We translated in system and struck in 3 waves. The first disabled the defensive flotilla by sheer overwhelming numbers. It was over very swiftly. Then, the defensive orbital platforms were torn apart at range, as none wished to get close to risk boarding pods filled with the blood of hate. Then, with all resistance swept away, the fleet took an orbital pattern above the facility and shot down. On the planet of Aranea, there were scant few farming regions on one central facility. It was expansive and had a score of barracks and buildings above ground, probably twice that below. Its shields covered the walls and a canopy above the central fortifications. The rebels kept up a punishing barrage for 2 whole cycles. The shields were weakening. Some outer walls and blocks had been eroded, at least flattened at best, but there was nothing left for it. To break the deadlock and to be certain of success, a ground assault was required. All knew it would be bloody. This was where the gene-enhanced monsters known as the Blood of Hate were manufactured. That was the whole point. But there would be some in defense of this facility. None knew how many, nor how well equipped and trained they would be. But they would be there. A swarm of landers were disgorged from the rebel fleet and went down a distance to the base and skimmed low to get closer. Eventually, they touched down and thousands of human soldiers were disgorged. Voidsmen all, some like breachers, some armed with flamers and similar small arms. And they knew what was being asked of them. The next days were filled with casualty reports. The last of those days we witnessed ourselves. Landing close to the fighting, we moved into the hills approaching the facility, but it was more like a fortress. Carpets of dead littered the approaches. Where there were breaches from the bombardment, the fighting had been terrible. Even on the walls, as rebel jump troops had been deployed, but the Blood of Hate had plied their trade. Numbers and names are one thing, seeing it is another. I was horrified. They were so much larger than Astartes, with simpler but similar armor. Bolters, chainswords. The Blood of Hate exterminated the soldiery as they rushed in. Yet, these things were not Astartes. They weren't space marines. They were simple, rage-filled butchers. They could be goaded and dragged out of place by the promise of slaughter. A false retreat leading into massed fire. They always took the bait. But it was terrible to witness. Some might say that only Krieg could sustain such casualties and continue. But this is not so. For all our weakness to the dark powers, for all our jealousy, hatred and lies, what also runs in the veins of humanity, is built into our very DNA, is courage and self-sacrifice. These men died for their families, for their mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, daughters and sons. And for each 20 that were slain, they took one of the giant killing machines with them. And inch by inch, foot by bloody foot, they fought their way into the fortifications. But finally, after 2 full days of it, a night and a half, they had cleared the way. I stood up and looked to my force. Ilhavnarian the Solitaire, my mentor the Farseer, Ursula, Louis and Josephus, all armed and armoured to the eye teeth. And I stated, "Now we are closer. Heart of Fire, Ilhavnarian, what do you feel?" The Solitaire approaches me and whispers, "The one I duelled with before. I smell his stench." "Which?" says I. "Both," he responds. The Heart of Fire, Tan Irenaid, states, "I confirm the presence of the Cormorite and a demon, a greater one. There are many unquieted souls before us as well. The brink of rage consumes them. More of these Blood of Hate, these Marines." I wheel on him and snap, "Do they look anything like Barbon to you, sir?" I should not have done that. He just inclines his head. "Of course not. But Barobiel of Amelia's lot, or those Ogrin or Saulets, are not so dissimilar?" He gets a laugh from both Ursula and the Solitaire, Josephus just looks on stonily. Louis is rolling on the floor, lips curled back in merriment. Yes, but all told, this is one hell of a kill team. I take a step above our barricade. They can all see me now clearly, and I give them my pep talk. We have to be certain that the spiders are removed with the web. We go in there and strike hard. Everything and everyone before us gets swept away. Then, finally, we kill the spiders. He'll have Narian on point, then Josephus and I, Ursula and Louis behind. Tan Irenaid, please, watch over all of us. And with that, we set off at a run until we reached the 210th, who volunteered to get us there. Across the battle-churned ground we run, slipping all too often on mud, or worse. We reached the outer walls without incident, but the second yob to the inner walls was a massacre. Explosions bloomed above us, around us, amongst the lines of the 210th. They were gunned down by heavy bolter fire from the walls, our own snipers knocking out some positions when they lit themselves up, but slower and fewer than was hoped, as many of these targets were required to be shot multiple times before they were neutralized. While crossing another broken wall, our escort was set upon by a quartet of these hulking Primaris things. Limbs went flying, heads flattened with a single blow. The 210th overpowered too by rushing them. Scores died, but they pulled them down into the mud and sawed at their joints until blades went inside and slew the beasts. The others were taken down by concentrated fire, but so many had fallen. Reduced to the last squad of the platoon, they took us right to the doors. Then they held position to cover our withdrawal later. As we prepared to walk inside, I received a message from the captain in orbit. I did not divulge this to the group. It would be a distraction, and in we went. But what did he say? The comms call came through. Captain, report. An Omegan fleet has arrived. Laurent reports it is the 7th and 3rd. He stated, "May your God Emperor be with you. It's a trap. Destroy that station, then get out of here. We will give you as much time as we can." That was all he said. Your orders, Inquisitor? We'll be as quick as we can. I stride into the darkness with my entourage. Tonight, we stalk evil in its very lair. But we are not the hunted. We are the hunters. For the Emperor is with me, and so too is Temperance.